Hi guys! This morning I received my new textbooks for the new academic year, and so I thought it'd be the perfect time to go over my system of like notebooks and paper and blah 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 and figure out what I'm gonna do this year. I'm currently in university and I'm really happy with the system that I have in regards to like notebooks and stuff. I feel like it makes a lot of sense and I feel like I'm able to study more effectively, and so I wanted to just show you guys like a tour of all the things I'm planning to use this year, how I'm planning to use them, so that if there's anything that might be useful for you, you can steal it and hopefully study a little better. I want to go over 4 main kind of like areas. For context, I'm a little bit secretive about what degree I do. I've chosen not to speak about that online, but I will give you guys a little bit of like a rundown of what is expected of me in each module and the type of studying I'll be doing so that you guys can apply it to whatever it is that you're studying. I'm going to be doing 2 different modules that I am approaching quite differently, so I'm going to share how I'm planning to approach those and what I'm planning to use. Then I want to show you guys how I'm organizing my time and what I'm using as my uni planner. And finally, I want to show you guys how I prepare for assignments and examinations. In this video, I also didn't go too much over lecture notes. That is because last year I was really naughty and I genuinely went to barely any lectures at all. I did most of my work through textbooks and just like catching up, looking through the like set text and stuff like that. However, I do think that like my system still would work even like with lectures and stuff. The few times I did go to lectures, I was making notes in the notebooks that I am describing in here. It still works with lectures, I just didn't explain it too much in this video, but hopefully it's still going to be helpful and I still feel like you'll be able to figure out a way to make this system work with whatever degree you're doing and however you're learning. So first of all, my first module, I think this one is the simplest one, which is why I wanted to start with it. In terms of how it's assessed, I think it's the most straightforward, and I find the way that I'm actually learning the information and stuff is just like, it's much more simple than module number 2. First of all though, how I've come up with the system and what I recommend you guys to do with your own degrees or like school curriculums or whatever it is that you're studying, I try to base how I learn off of how I will be assessed. It's like a little bit depressing because like, for example, I love my degree and I want to be able to memorize and understand absolutely everything that I'm learning, but I do recognize that at the end of the day, I am also doing this degree in order to have a good qualification. It's a pretty expensive degree, so I want to make sure that I'm getting my money's worth. And so for me, at the start of the year, as soon as I have access to it, I have a look at how I'm going to be assessed, what style my exams are going to be. Last year, I had 6 assessments and all of them actually contributed to my final grade. And really weirdly, last year, how my uni had it, we had access to all of the essay questions before we actually like got to the assessment date. So at the start of my course, before I even knew what anything was or anything meant, I wrote down all of my assessment questions and the kind of span of like, I guess, content that it would be covering so that I knew how I should structure my learning. So last year with the module that's like the same style as this module, I had the 6 assessments, but also they were quite simple in the fact that like we would do a chunk of learning, we'd have an assessment on it. We would do a chunk of learning, we'd have an assessment on it. And that just kind of continued. It was only at the very end that it got more complex and I had to actually kind of like be able to link information from different parts of the course together. At the beginning, it was really straightforward. You learn, you have an exam. You learn, you have an exam. And so that is how I have kind of based my note-taking system. I currently am using, and like this is what I used last year, and the module that I'm doing this year is really similar to that one. I have these beautiful Paper Republic ruled pages. Also really, really cute. I was studying at my friend's house and I say friends because there were 2 of them and they left me this note. The majority of my learning for this module is split over textbooks and set text. So it is a lot of reading. It is mostly reading actually. And so what I do is I mostly highlight and make notes, but I want to make this clear because highlighting is a very passive way of engaging with your work. I make sure that I am being very careful with what I highlight. Like I'm not highlighting the whole page. I'm also making notes next to my highlighting. I am consolidating. For example, if I'm being introduced to 3 key ideas, I will highlight those ideas and then on the side next to it, and also my textbooks have really big margins, which is really helpful. I will do like a heading and then like really briefly in my own words, like just a few words to be honest, write each key idea I've been introduced to and like a very short summary to make sure that I'm actually actively engaging with the textbook and I'm actually learning. I also do that with the set text and the papers as well. I also really like to work with paper, so if I can print anything out, I make sure it's printed out. What I use this for is as like almost like an index of sorts. So what I will do is any like really key information, like for example definitions that I like don't know and I know like I really need to know, or any like quotes that I want to to refer back to. If it's really important, then I'll write it down. Or what I'll also do is make a very brief note and also put the page number of whatever it is that I got that from, like for example the textbook, so then I am able to refer back to my kind of like index catalog of information when I am writing out the assignments which are making up part of my grade. I think I mentioned that this is a Paper Republic notebook, so I actually keep this together with a few other uni related things in this beautiful humongous Paper Republic Grand Voyager. I'm pretty sure it's the Grand Voyager. It's the one with like nothing inside, but it's just really handy because I'm able to keep all of my notebooks together. Also, this is the exact notebook that I used for last year. Like I literally have all my old notes from last year in here, but I had lots of space left, so I'm just basically reusing it for the same thing. I've briefly gone over how I like to make notes in regards to assessments, and also the fact that I really find it important to engage with my work actively. That is something I really recommend in general. Like I really can't stress how lazy of a student I've been my whole life, but also like I've been really blessed and I've always got pretty good grades, and I think that is because I'm just genuinely quite good at studying and exam skills. I recommend putting so much time to exam skills and studying and really reflecting on like what is the best way for you to get good grades in whatever like module or topic or subject you are studying. And so this brings me on to this week's sponsor. I recently did the Skillshare class, Learn How to Learn Anything Based on Science, Effective Study Techniques and Beating Procrastination by Unjaded Jade. I found it to be super helpful. I also really liked how this class was set out. She basically went over what it means to learn and how to best learn and really make sure that you are like making the most of your time and energy that you are spending studying. I really like that she wasn't just saying like, oh, these are my tips and not really explaining them. Like she really explained why they work, how they work, and she also included a lot of like games and quizzes in the class so that you really like retain the knowledge that she's teaching you in order to learn how to better retain knowledge. I found it really helpful because a lot of the tips she was giving I already do, and I was like, okay, I'm glad that I'm on the right track. But she also introduced me to a lot of new ideas and I guess ways to go about my studying. So I'm really excited. I feel actually kind of motivated, like okay, I'm excited for the next academic year. I've been really enjoying my summer, so I'm a bit like, oh, I'm feeling a bit lazy. I don't know how I'm feeling about being a student again, but actually I know I've got this and I'm excited to try out all the new skills that I've learned. I really recommend that class, but Skillshare has a lot of other classes that I've seen to do with like study tips and skills, and also Skillshare just low-key has everything. Skillshare has a really large range of classes that are taught by professionals, and they're also available on demand, which is great if you're a student because you can really choose when it is that you want to learn some more. I'm also really pleased to share that the first 500 people to use the link in my description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Thank you so much as always, Skillshare, for sponsoring this video and also for teaching me so many new ways to maximize my learning. Okay, that was my slightly simpler module that I am feeling more confident in because I feel like it's just a bit of an easier way to assess my learning, and I feel like I'm able to put in a little bit less effort for that one. I'm now going to go into module 2, which is the one that I am a little bit more nervous about, and also again I had a really similar one last year and I feel like that one was a bit harder. This is my ginormous, beautiful and also dusty because it's been the summer Filofax. This is, guys, so big, like I'm sorry, double the size of my head. Again, I think like what's really helpful is not just being like, you guys should use this, you guys should buy this, but actually explaining how I'm assessed, how I'm planning to note take, and then how from that I've built a system that works for me. So for this one, again, I have like my final assignment, but throughout the year I will have smaller assignments that are also like part of my final grade. And also I'm now a year 2 student, so like this is actually now part of my final grade. But this is a little bit more complex. Whereas with the first one, it's like you learn a topic and then you're just assessed on that topic. This one is taught in blocks, and the blocks go over a lot of different ways of approaching certain questions or certain topics. The final like assignment for each block really asks you to like intertwine and weave all the things you've learned in a more complex way. The other one is a lot more like, we give you a topic and you have to analyze and make sense of this topic on your own, and I prefer that. Whereas this one is like, you are given loads of research, loads of different points of views, lots of theories, and based off of that you need to weave together an argument from the things we've given you. But we've given you so much stuff that you need to be able to consolidate and like pick out what information is the most appropriate and important, and then also like back up all your analysis with evidence. And I find that to be quite a bit harder and a bit more complex and confusing because I'm having to like pick things out of a much larger pool of like available information. So for this one, I'll show you guys the inside now. I still actually have last year's things in here. This is more of like a binder. It is a Filofax. Here is like an A4 notepad that you can slide out, so I can replace this with other notepads. To be honest, like I don't think it has to be a Filofax one. I don't want to actually like misspeak, but I think Some Filofaxes, it's like you can only get Filofax paper with, or you have to like punch your own holes because they're like a weird specific measurement. But I'm pretty sure this is more universal. Like I can replace this with any notepad. It doesn't have to be a Filofax specific one. And that's great because I have so many leftover A4 notepads in my house, so I can just like use those and I'm not gonna have to buy any new ones. Again, I am doing that split of like textbooks, research papers, all of these things I'm printing out. I am having like a physical log of. I am doing the highlighting and the consolidating and the writing in the margins and all of that. Again, make sure that you are not just passively highlighting, but that you are actively engaging with the topics that you are given and you are actively engaging with the information that is kind of like going into your mind. Really quickly also, I think that is why I like paper writing, because I've seen a lot of people be like, oh, why don't you just make notes on your laptop? But I feel like it's so passive. Writing out, I feel like it's much more like sensory. Like there's all the colors, you can hear like the pens scratching, you feel the movement like of your hand. Like it feels a little bit more like you are actually actively doing it, whereas typing for me feels very disconnected. And that's why I feel like I recall less. When I was first in uni, I used to bring a laptop into lectures, and I remember like finding that I record less because I was able to write down so much. I feel like being limited by speed, because obviously you're not able to like write out everything that someone is saying when you are handwriting, unless you are like insanely abnormally fast at handwriting, is good, because then you are having to like actively make decisions of like what to write down and what is important enough to keep. I also would quickly like to do another disclaimer, which is that I didn't really go into any lectures at all last year, which is really bad. That's why I mostly relied on papers and textbooks and stuff like that. I was mostly doing everything at home, which is not good, and I'm planning to do more lectures this year. But yeah, I still got a good grade though, so maybe I knew what I was doing, but I feel like that won't fly for year 2. I assume it's going to be quite a bit harder. I use this notebook, and the reason I like it is because I'm having to like flip back and forth and like go through notes a lot more than in my first module. I'm using this as an index. I'm writing out the most important, like for example, names of researchers, and then like the page where that research actually is. I'm really limiting the amount that I'm writing down. If you're just writing out what you're reading, you aren't actively engaging that much with it, and you are wasting quite a lot of time. And that's why I like to really just make sure I'm putting down only the absolute essential things, so that I'm saving time, but I'm also like struggling a bit to figure out what to write. And because of that struggle, I'm remembering more and I'm understanding more, and I'm kind of more in touch with the concepts that I'm writing down. I do that for like a whole block, and then at the end of the block, I take that out and I tie it together with like a little bit of string. So then when it gets to writing the assignment, I write assignments like a lunatic. What I do is I like go on my bed and I put all of the information that is necessary around me, because like I said, it's a really big pool of information that I'm having to like pick out from. So I'll have like my little booklet index thing as like the main thing I'm focusing on, and I'm like, okay, this research is relevant. What page is it? Oh, it's page this of textbook this. And then next to me I'll have all my textbooks and all the papers that I've printed out and that I've had to refer to, and any like books, for example, I've had to look through. Like I've got them all open in front of me, and then I'm able to quickly go to that. Okay, and how does that link to this over there? And how does that link to that over there? And it's really overwhelming. And I'm gonna also go over like how I actually write those assignments in a moment, because I do have a system for that. But basically I'm using this as an index, but it's more like a booklet just because of like how much information I'm having to go through. Anyways, that is in my beautiful Filofax. And also you guys, I think, will be pleased to see that most of these things are the same things that I spoke about last year when I was like, guys, this is what I'm hoping to use for uni. I feel like I've actually like stuck through and been using them, which is really great. I really like that I'm not having to buy new things or anything. If anything, the only thing that's changed is that I'm just a lot more aware of how these systems have come into play and how I've ended up actually using them. Next, I have my planning / organizing, and again we're going back to the Paper Republics, and I have this beautiful, I need to get a new one actually, beautiful planner. So I'm going to open on a random page so you guys see the spread. I really like this notebook. I feel like the system I'm going to share is one that you can recreate in any notebook. I was just really lucky to work with Paper Republic, and they offered to send me a bunch of notebooks, and I asked for this one, but they are quite pricey, so I don't know if I'm necessarily going to buy this one again, but I'm definitely going to replicate this system that I have with a different notebook. So I love that it's double spread. This is kind of also how I do my daily planning, but I like to keep my school stuff separate to my like work life stuff. I don't know why, I just find that that is a bit easier. On the one hand, I don't know if you can really see it, to be honest. I've got like all the days of the week with like a little bit of space, and what I do in there is I write any like things that I'm doing on that day. So for example, I should be going to my lectures, and I'll put like the lecture time or whatever on the day that it is on. If I have any deadlines, I will put them, like for example, assignment due Thursday the 5th, I'll put it there. What I like this other half though for is that like sometimes I don't know how long things will take me, and so I don't want to like time block it, like I have to do this thing here, this thing there, and this thing there, because then like I just basically get a bit confused. If I've said I'm going to do something and I don't do it and it's written down, then I'm like, oh well, then I don't have to do anything on this sheet and we can just ignore all of it, and I'm not going to do anything this week. So instead, this side, I will just have a general to-do list. This is all dotted paper, so there's a lot of freedom to write that out in any way that I need. For example, if it's like things are contingent on me having done something else before, then I can do a flowchart and I'll just do little bullet, what are they called? Just like little squares. What are they called? And that way I have that split of like, okay, what do I have to do on certain days of the week and what do I generally just have to do in the week? And for me, this has been the best way to plan my days. Last of all, I want to talk to you guys about assignment prep, and especially like in my case, assignments are part of my final grade, so they are pretty deep. I treat them like assessments, and I want to show you guys what it is that I do for them. I have two different kinds of notebooks for each module. Well, one of them actually I use for both, and then I have two separate notebooks for each module. The one that I use for both is, again, one of these Paper Republic, just like ruled big A4 pages. It says assignments on it, very, very handy. But I also have one of these Campus Kokuyo. Guys, do you remember my Kokuyo fascination? When I thought I was going to be studying maths, I was so obsessed with Kokuyo paper and like Kokuyo stuff, and I still think if I had studied maths, that would have been like the best system for me. But anyways, I've got some leftover Kokuyo stuff. I've got this campus notebook in the size, I actually don't know what size, but this is how big it is compared to my head. I feel like maybe like B6 or maybe A5. What I do at the start of each module is I write out anything I need to know about any assignments or assessments. I will write out the weighting of the assessments, any information that I have about the assessments. For example, last year we had access to the questions beforehand, so I will write them down. Anything that I need to know as I'm moving through the module, and also to kind of be aware of at the start of the module. Like I really try start with the end point so that I know what path I'm taking, because otherwise I feel a bit overwhelmed. Then what I also do, which I really recommend, whenever I get assessment feedback, I am writing notes. I'm going through all of the feedback. I don't always do this, but I want to do this every time. I aim to always also just like reread my whole assignment and apply mentally the feedback that they've given. I feel like the ideal thing would be also just like to rewrite the assignment, but I feel like I'm a bit of a lazy student, like I said. Like this is the amount of work that I'm doing with all of this is kind of in order to minimize the amount of work I need to do later. But anyways, so I'm writing out the grade that I got, what went well, what things are my strengths, what things can I know that I can replicate in the next one and are generally good things to do. And then even better if are just things that I need to focus on in the next one. And that way, when I'm writing my next assessment, I'm first of all looking through the first sheet, which just basically says all the information that I need to know, what the assessment question is, how much it's going to be weighted and stuff. Then I go to my assignment feedback pages and I'm reading out what I need to work on so that I know what it is that cost me any marks in the previous assignment so that I can do better each time. And I feel like that's been pretty consistent, to be honest. Like I feel like my assignments, each one I was turning in, with some like obviously natural fluctuations, it was getting better and better. And I also feel like my assignment skills have gotten better and better as I've kind of figured out what it is that I need to be working on, so I'm not just like making the same mistakes over and over again. Then as for the actual assignment writing, I, like I said, have quite like a chaotic assignment writing, I don't know, basically I just go into like a hole for a few days. For a few days no one can reach me. I usually do it really last minute. Like it's like, oh, my assignment is due in 3 days and I've not even started preparing what papers I'm going to be looking through, what things I'm going to be referencing. Like I don't know what's going on. So then I sit on my bed, I throw everything open, I'm looking at everything. I have my little indexes that I've made. Most of my assignments are essay based, so this is now going to be some essay advice, which maybe hopefully is helpful for people. What I like to do is I almost treat it like a sculpture. Like it's really weird, but how I view essay writing is I am starting with a huge mess of information and I'm slowly refining and refining and refining and refining. And what ends up happening is I get stressed because I'm like, oh crap, I only left myself 3 days and this planning has taken me 2 days. I've taken so long planning, and then the actual essay I write in like 3 hours. Like I really cannot stress enough, at least for me, how helpful and important the planning stage is. So what I do first of all is I just write out all the information that I know, that I remember. With the essay question in mind, look through my index and I'm writing out anything in the index that looks important. Then I start kind of refining that a little bit more. So I've got this mess of information. I then like to do a mind map. How do these ideas link? And usually I'll do a few different mind maps, and that is why this is great, because it's just a big sheet of paper in my face. Honestly, if I could have an A3 notebook, that sounds annoyingly large, but I feel like that's what I need. The bigger the sheet of paper in front of me, the better. And I'm mind mapping and I'm linking ideas and stuff like that. And then from that, I kind of start to develop my paragraphs. Okay, here I have a group of ideas that are all linking and there's like a central theme. What is like the main kind of like point I can make from this central theme with all of these points and all of this evidence? From there, I have my paragraphs, and then I'm able to refine it a bit more. I actually write out a plan that's a bit more structured. I've got all my references. I also start referencing early because I hate referencing. So I just kind of make sure that I've got all of that sorted. And then from that, with my plan, like my plans are really detailed. I'll have like the main point I'm making, all the evidence, all the like sub points, and then the conclusion. So then when I'm actually writing the essay, it's like I'm just like making that sound a bit fancier, but I've got all the points and all the arguments that I'm making already set out, so it ends up being a lot easier. Honestly, like the only part of my like note-taking process, essay writing process, is just that I kind of do my essay on my laptop. I think I start to kind of, when I'm sorting through ideas, that's when I like to introduce the laptop into the mix. Sometimes like when I try to do it all on paper, I was driving myself a bit mad because I would be like writing out things and then crossing it out because realizing something goes better there. I think the ideal for me would be, and I actually used to do this when I first went to uni and I was studying philosophy. I remember I was writing this essay on Plato, and what I did was I like wrote out my notes, I printed them, I cut them out, I did the mind map with them cut out, and then I actually like shifting everything around. I found that to be so much easier, but now I'm too lazy to do that, so I just like do that on my laptop where I'm writing things out, I'm rearranging them, I'm able to erase things really seamlessly, whereas it's a bit of a nightmare to like, I don't know, just like have half the page crossed out with this. Then afterwards I'm moving it to like the essay plan, and then afterwards I'm able to write out my essay, and I feel like for that I do actually quite like my laptop. But for basically everything else, no, we are traditional, we are analog. I don't know if analog is even the word, but we love physical media here because I feel so much more engaged with my writing, with my studying, with my learning, and I feel like I actually learn better. Anyways, I feel like that was all over the place a little bit because I don't want to just tell you guys like this is the system, copy it, because it might not work for you, it might not be helpful for you, it might not be the most useful way to study for your degree, for the way that you're assessed. So I really wanted to explain all of my reasoning behind why I'm doing these things, because I feel like that way you're able to either like apply some things to your own learning, or you're able to see like, okay, that's how they drew those conclusions, maybe I can like reflect on how I'm assessed and stuff like that and draw my own conclusions on how I want to note take. That is everything though. It is quite a lot because I write everything on paper, and also I just like can't get over how ginormously like comically hilariously big this is. It's so big that usually I can fit my entire textbook and like any like papers and any like books and stuff in here as well, so at least I kind of can treat it as a bag. I will leave links in the description if you want to just like quickly click them and you don't have to like search for these things, so hopefully that'll be a bit easier as well. Please let me know if you have any questions. I'm also sorry to be a bit like elusive about my degree. I feel like that does make these videos a little bit more awkward, but I guess the point is that it's not really relevant what I'm studying because we're probably not studying the same thing, and even if we are, we probably are not at the same uni. If anything, maybe it's a bit better that it's elusive and secret so that you are able to apply it to yourself rather than envision what I'm doing. Also, the reason I'm so dressed up is because I'm about to go to a birthday party. I really wanted to quickly record this because literally today my textbooks came and I was like, wait, okay, I'm feeling inspired, but I was also a bit stressed because I need to leave the house in 10 minutes and I've still not packed, so I'm gonna go do that. Thank you so much for watching as usual. Please like if you like this video and please subscribe. I would love to have you over on my channel. Please comment and let me know what things you like to use for note-taking, or if you have any like note-taking tips or tricks or like things you do that you feel like might be helpful for other people. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you guys next week. Bye bye.